Module 1, Vulnerability Basics. Welcome to your vulnerability training. This is Module 1, Vulnerability Basics. This training is designed to help you gain the awareness, knowledge, and skills you need to support a person who is vulnerable to make good decisions. Your organization will provide what customers want in a way that protects the organization from criticism and reputational damage. The training objectives are: what may define someone as vulnerable? Recognizing the warning signs. What a vulnerable person might say during a call. How to meet the needs of vulnerable customers. Useful tools and resources to consider. Appropriate terminology guidelines. Policies and procedures. Keeping records. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, someone who is vulnerable is able to be easily physically, emotionally, or mentally hurt, influenced, or attacked. People are hurt, influenced, or attacked often because assumptions are made about them, or they are judged because of certain characteristics that apply to them. For example, because of their age, sex, or marital status. People can be vulnerable because of their current circumstances, for example, because they are bereaved, pregnant, coping with infirmity or serious illness. Here are some of the other main characteristics applying to people that can make them vulnerable. Physical disability, learning disability, poor mental health, sexual orientation, gender identity, race, religious or other beliefs, ethnic status, coming from another distinct social group, or for other reasons, having a disempowered status in society. The bias we bring to situations can be conscious or unconscious, so be mindful of this and take care to treat people as unique individuals. Recognizing the warning signs. A person may demonstrate one or more of the following signs depending on the nature of their vulnerability: an inability to make decisions, constant repetition, answering yes to all questions, a lack of emotional responsiveness, confusion, being slow in speech and/or having a monotonous tone of voice, asking unrelated questions or making irrelevant points, excessive worrying including requiring repeated reassurance, a lack of patience, displaying irritability and anger, a lack of concentration, difficulty understanding the conversation or the questions asked. What a vulnerable person might say during a call. My partner, friend, family member always dealt with these things. I am feeling alone, scared, anxious, sad, stressed. I can't cope or deal with this now. Leave me alone. Don't pressure me. Give me time to think, respond. They might say yes to everything but fail to keep up with the conversation, or they may directly disclose a vulnerability. How to meet the needs of vulnerable customers. At the start of your contact with a customer, be clear about the information you need and the questions you will ask. Ask how your customer likes to communicate. If they are anxious or do not want to talk on the phone, suggest email or live chat if that's a possibility. Ask in which format they would like any documentation and, if needed, check there is someone to help them with it. Be mindful of your tone of voice and speak clearly. And for people with a visual impairment, provide large print physical copies, digital formats, and Braille. For people with visual and hearing impairments, provide audio tools if available. Be understanding, patient, and empathetic, understanding and sharing the feelings of others, rather than sympathetic, feeling pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. Listen to the customer, and then give them time to think and respond, especially if you are giving information that is sensitive or difficult to handle. Offer to call back later, if necessary, at a prearranged time. The most common cause of misunderstanding is not listening properly. Pay full attention and don't race ahead to your next point. You could miss vital information. It may also increase your chances of not achieving the outcome you want. Be mindful that vulnerabilities can be complex, changeable, and unique to the individual. No two people with the same vulnerability will be the same, and vulnerabilities present in different ways. So, always take an approach right for the person you're in contact with. Taking time to find out the support they need will benefit them and you. When closing your contact, summarize key points and decisions. Check that the customer has no more questions and has understood everything. Check that they are happy with the outcome of the call. This gives you another opportunity to be sure that the customer is not in an emotional state, agreeing with you just to make the contact end sooner. A note on discrimination. Discrimination can be direct, making judgments or taking actions based on known or assumed protected characteristics or vulnerabilities, or indirect, where a policy or procedure applies to everyone but has an impact on someone with a protected characteristic or vulnerability for no justifiable reason. Throughout your contact, be mindful not to discriminate. Avoid discrimination by using correct terminology, avoiding words, phrases, and statements that stigmatize. We will look at this in more detail soon. Useful tools and resources to consider. An acronym that you may find useful is CARE. Comprehend. Is your customer able to understand the conversation? Assess. Is your customer able to make decisions? Retain. Does your customer appear able to retain the information you are giving them? Evaluate. How well does your customer express, explain, or communicate their decisions? Are they engaging in two-way conversation or simply agreeing with you to keep up appearances or to end the call sooner? Another useful acronym is BRUCE. B. Behaviors. Identifying any behaviors which may suggest your customer is vulnerable. R. Remembering. Is your customer struggling to remember what you've said or decisions they have made? U. Understanding. Is your customer able to demonstrate an understanding of the content of the call? C. Communicating. Is your customer able to articulate their requests, concerns, and thoughts? Are they able to communicate any decisions which are required? E. Evaluating. Is the customer able to consider different options and make the decision that is best for their situation? Using these tools will help you to prevent a vulnerable customer from agreeing to conditions and terms they do not understand. This will avoid the risk of customers defaulting on product or services. It will also reduce the likelihood of a customer experiencing emotional or physical distress, financial hardship, and other adverse consequences in their personal life. Appropriate terminology guidelines. It is good practice to use person-first language. Instead of referring to a blind person, instead say a person with visual impairment. A person should not be referred to as a depressed person, but instead a person with depression. The key is not to forget that people are much more than their vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are just a part of what makes everyone uniquely who they are. Policies and procedures. Check your organization's guidelines, policies, and procedures for supporting vulnerable people. Become familiar with them and adopt them as appropriate. Keeping records. Records about your customers should be stored securely and kept confidential. Recording appropriate information about your customers' vulnerabilities and their preferences for dealing with them will allow you to respond appropriately in future to their needs. For example, you might make a note that your customer found it easier if you spoke slowly and to repeat what's been said. This will help other colleagues speaking to your customer in the future. It will also remind you of any adjustments you need to make and to seek in-house specialist support if required. Keeping records will mean your organization to hold details of people who can act on your customers' behalf. Having accurate, comprehensive records will make it easier to share information with customers in a legally compliant way.
Some industries, for example, energy, water and telecoms in the UK, are required to maintain a register of customers who will need a rapid response in the event of an interruption to their services. If your organization is required to maintain a priority.
Summary. In this module, we have learned that it is important for organizations to spot vulnerability in their customers to protect the customer and the organization. That if someone is easily physically, emotionally, or mentally hurt, influenced, or attacked, that makes a person vulnerable. That there are many signs to look for in what a person says, the tone in which they say it, their pauses and hesitations, in their mood, and in their levels of anxiety. That there are some stock phrases to look out for, providing more clues as to whether a person is vulnerable. That some people may tell you directly, that meeting the needs of vulnerable people is not straightforward. No two people will present in the same way, and it is important not to make assumptions about what they need. You may need to make more than one contact to complete your business. CARE and BRUCE are useful acronyms to help you. That using person-first language is good practice, and using appropriate terminology will make your customer feel valued. That you should be familiar with your organization's vulnerability policies and procedures. That keeping accurate records will help you support your customers and your organization to provide information in a legally compliant way.